What's going on there, YouTube, and welcome back to another comic book video. Okay, so we are going to do a full story video. A full story video is when I sit down, take a bunch of videos, and combine them together into one big video. With that being said, these smaller videos are telling one overarching storyline. Now, today's full story video is about Ultimate Spider-Man. See, over the years, I had covered a lot of Ultimate Spider-Man content on my channel, and I feel like I covered almost every single story that Ultimate Peter Parker has been involved in, except from Ultimate Marvel Team Up. Either way, because there's so many videos out there for me when it comes to Ultimate Spider-Man, I felt like it was the best idea to break up his full story videos into multiple full story videos. And so we already did part 1 and part 2. This is going to be part 3. And when it comes to part 3, it takes place after Harry Osborn just became the Hobgoblin, but it leads all the way into the Clone Saga, which is a very huge moment in the life of Ultimate Peter Parker. And so I do hope you enjoy today's full story video.
Now, we begin today's story by picking up with Alan Silvermane. Now, Alan Silvermane is a character we have seen before in Ultimate X-Men, where Gambit fought against Hammerhead. But right now, he is back in Ultimate Spider-Man storyline. Here is one big thing about this opening sequence. The Kingpin is on trial still, and it seems like he might finally fall to the law. But with him being in trouble with the law, Silvermane wants to become the new Kingpin of New York. And right now, he is trying to recruit an old friend to help him out with this new goal of his. But this person he's asking for help starts to beat down on him to the point where this person does kill off Silvermane. And then we come to find out who is the killer, which is Hammerhead, who should be dead because he died in Ultimate X-Men number 14. But apparently, he's still alive. The question is though, how? We then jump over to Peter Parker right now in the middle of class. Now, I don't remember if I mentioned this in the Hobgoblin video, but Peter Parker and Mary Jane are broken up now at this point in Ultimate Spider-Man. And so right now in class, while their teacher is going off about how the class did not do their homework, Peter is thinking about how he wants to be with Mary Jane. But the problem is she'll get hurt because he is Spider-Man, but also she does not know how to stay away when there is danger around. And so Peter Parker broke up with her to keep her safe. But with him in class thinking about the whole situation makes him upset. And he just leaves the class and goes out to be Spider-Man for the rest of the day. So we then jump over to Kingpin and Walter Dini. But you have Walter inform the Kingpin that they have found the body of Silvermane. Of course, you have Kingpin ask, who is the killer? Like, who is the person going around announcing that they killed Silvermane? But you have Walter tell Kingpin, no one's going around saying anything at all. But you have Kingpin tell Walter to call in Elektra because he knows that people are trying to take his spot and he wants to use her as an example that he should be feared because he is the Kingpin. We then pick up with Hammerhead walking into one of Kingpin's warehouse. Now, this is him grabbing anything in the warehouse that belongs to Kingpin, but they are actually valuable. But we also see that Hammerhead had hired the enforcers to join his squad. While they usually work for the Kingpin, except this time they are not. But while they are there, you have one of the guys who work in the warehouse as Hammerhead. How did he come back to life? Because Gambit in Ultimate X-Men number 14 made it seem like he killed off Hammerhead. But you have Hammerhead say he's not dead. He's back to take over the Kingpin spot. And so what he does, he takes anything that's valuable in the warehouse and then he starts to burn down the warehouse and he leaves as a way to hurt the Kingpin in the money department. But after Hammerhead leaves, that is when you have Spider-Man web swing in to see what is going on with this building. But the problem is, before he is able to do even some form of detective work, he gets attacked from behind by a new character in the Ultimate Marvel Universe, and that is Moon Knight. This is his first appearance in the Ultimate Marvel Universe, and he thinks that Spider-Man was the one who burned down the building, and he is here to bring Spider-Man in for what he thinks he did. Now, the second chapter does not pick up where the last chapter left off actually. Instead, it jumps over to Danny Rand, aka Iron Fist. Now, this is his first appearance as Iron Fist, but he first appeared in Ultimate Spider-Man special that we are not going to cover. But right now we pick up with him in prison, but he is getting out for good behavior. But you have the people who are talking to him about how he has to control his Iron Fist or he'll be right back in here if he gets into another fight again. But we then jump over to Moon Knight fighting against Spider-Man on top of a few buildings. Now Spider-Man is able to get the upper hand because, well, his spider powers. But these two fight and they go back and forth. But while they're fighting against each other, you have Elektra watching over the fight. Now, while she is watching over the fight, she is just informing Kingpin on what is happening, which is that the warehouse is gone, but also there is another player on the board, which is Moon Knight, and how Spider-Man is once again back in the picture. Now, after she informs the Kingpin, she continues to watch the fight between Spider-Man and Moon Knight, but the fight does end with Spider-Man leaving the fight just to get away to see another day. Now, we are going to jump over a few pages, because, well, most of the second chapter does take place at the Daily Bugle. It is literally just everyone is talking about Moon Knight and how he's attacking the Kingpin territory. Even though he was just there to see what was happening, but the Daily Bugle is changing what really happened. But when Peter Parker overheard that the warehouse that was burned down last night belonged to the Kingpin, Peter Parker changes into his Spider-Man outfit to go talk to the Kingpin himself to figure out why is he involved in this mess. Now, this is a huge part of the story because when Spider-Man arrives to the Kingpin's building, the door on the roof opens up and you see Elektra inviting Spider-Man in for the Kingpin to sit down and talk to Spider-Man. Now, the reason why the Kingpin wants to sit down with Spider-Man because they're trying to deal with the same problem, Hammerhead. And you have Kingpin say, listen, you're a good guy and you want to stop bad people. Well, listen, I know how you'll be able to figure out where to find Hammerhead because he is a bad guy. And so what I'm going to do to help you is hand over a sheet of paper, but on this sheet of paper is going to give you information on where to find Hammerhead. And when you do, you'll be able to bring him down. Now, for Peter, he's kind of like, wait a second, should I trust the Kingpin here? The Kingpin's a bad person as well. Yes, he is giving me information on another bad person, but it's kind of like, why would I take information from one bad guy to another bad guy? I should be trying to take him down as well. And so for Peter Parker, he's kind of like, what do I do here? Because if I say yes, I am technically helping the Kingpin out. But if I say no, well, then I lose my chance to get Hammerhead. And so Peter Parker is conflicted right now on what to do. We then jump over to Captain D. Wolf. And right now she's just dealing with some usual police problems, but she's really just chilling. While she's talking to some other officers, Spider-Man does appear on the side of the building as a way to get her attention to talk about something. which that he needs to talk about the Kingpin. How the Kingpin had given him information on Hammerhead, and he is wondering if he should trust the Kingpin just this one time. Because this is the Kingpin giving information about Hammerhead. And the thing is, if he does take this information, he is technically helping the Kingpin out with this Hammerhead problem. And so he asks Captain D. Wolf, what should he do? And you have Captain D. Wolf say, do it. Literally do it. Take his information. Because the thing is, if we go right now to bring in Hammerhead, well, he'll easily get away from the charges. But if a superhero goes in and just basically gets him in the act, well, there's no way he'll be able to dodge the charges. And so you have Captain D. Wolf tell Spider-Man, do it. Take the Kingpin's information. We then jump over to Iron Fist once again, and this time he is arriving to his part of town, which is Chinatown, which leads us to another character being reintroduced to us, and that is Shang-Chi. Now, this is not Shang-Chi's first appearance. He actually appeared in Ultimate Marvel Team Up number 15, but that was years before this book. And so it has been a while for him in the comic book world since the world has seen him. But right now he's meeting up with Iron Fist, and they're talking about how Chinatown is in trouble right now. Because right now you have all these different gangs that are surrounding Chinatown, and right now innocent people are getting hurt. And so you have Shang-Chi say, listen, you and I have to work together. We have to fix this, because right now in Chinatown, things are falling apart. I need your help. We need to fix this problem. Now, while Iron Fist and Shang-Chi are talking to one another, that's when you have Hammerhead appear. Now, Hammerhead is pissed off. He just heard that apparently in Chinatown, he is unable to get his money because the last few nights, Shang-Chi has been causing him problems. And so you have Hammerhead walk into the restaurant, look at Shang-Chi, look at Iron Fist and say, I'm gonna kill you both because you two are causing me problems here in my town. I make money here and I can't make money because of you. And the thing is, out of nowhere, you do have a fight break out between Hammerhead, Iron Fist, and Shang-Chi. Now, Spider-Man does come in also in this fight, and so now we have a four-way fight. The problem is though, while the fight is going on, Spider-Man gets his butt kicked by Hammerhead. And right when Hammerhead is about to give the killing blow to Spider-Man, out of nowhere, you have the Black Cat appear. And this is huge because now Brian Michael Bendis is saying, hey, listen, Black Cat didn't die. She's alive and she's back right now for this story right here. Now with Black Cat arriving to the scene, you have an all-out fight between all the different parties that was there. But with the cops arriving to the scene, you have everybody going their separate ways before any of them get caught by the police. Now, after Black Cat and Spider-Man go their separate ways, you have Spider-Man ask Black Cat, how in the world is she still alive right now? Because we all saw her die a while back. But now here she is alive and well. And she tells us that apparently she has 9 lives. Which is like a lame excuse on how in the world she's here right now, but whatever. She also kind of tells Spider-Man how much she likes him and how much she wants to be with him. Now guys, remember, Peter Parker and Mary Jane are broken up. And so you have Peter kind of like, well, you know, I am single right now and you're here. This could possibly work. Now the thing is, you do have Peter Parker kind of like, no, because you're crazy. Like, you are literally crazy. There's no way this can work. I will not help you. And the thing is, I need you to stay away from me. And you have Peter Parker just run away from Black Cat. Now, with the 5th chapter, you have Brian Michael Bendis use this chapter as a way to lead us to what could be a big battle. And the reason why I say that is because we pick up with Elektra going around killing people who are moving away from the Kingpin. They are starting to help out Hammerhead more, because, well, Hammerhead is trying to become the new kingpin of New York. We then quickly jump over to Moon Knight. Well, actually Mark Spector, because this is Brian Michael Bendis confirming that just like in the main Marvel universe, Moon Knight has multiple personalities that he uses to go through the life to be a hero. But each personality is talking to him right now at once, telling him it is time for him to make his move. It's time for him to make his move on Hammerhead at this moment right now. We then jump over to Peter Parker, and this is Brian Michael Bendis kind of using this part as a way to show us that things between Peter Parker and Mary Jane will not be getting better anytime soon, that these two will stay broken up. Peter reminds her why, because she can get hurt. She could possibly die because of him being Spider-Man. And Mary Jane is kind of not listening to what Peter is trying to say. And so, of course, this does start a huge argument between the two parties. But the thing is, you have Peter say, listen, I'm done. I am done because you are not listening to me. I'm trying to tell you that you could possibly die because of me being Spider-Man. And the only thing you care of is being a boyfriend who has a superhero. No, I'm done. And he leaves and he goes to put on his Spider-Man outfit. And when he leaves to go be Spider-Man, he looks at the picture that Kingpin handed him earlier with the address of Hammerhead. And so he heads over there, and of course, he starts to wonder if him being here is a good idea, because he is technically helping the Kingpin out, which is a huge thing for Peter, because we have been seeing in multiple issues that Spider-Man has been trying to bring down the Kingpin. Now, while he is thinking, that is when Black Cat appears out of nowhere. Now, with her here, she's kind of like, hey, I got word that Hammerhead would be here, and so I came here to stop Hammerhead before he gets away once again. Now, you do have Black Cat tell Spider-Man that he should probably stay out of this because she does not want to see him get hurt. But at the same time, you have Peter kind of like, no, I'm here to bring down Hammerhead because this man is trying to become the next Kingpin. But that is when gunshots go off and you have Peter Parker and Black Cat rush into the house of Hammerhead, and that's when you see Moon Knight, Elektra, Iron Fist, Shang-Chi, and Hammerhead all in one room with Black Cat and Spider-Man. And it's kind of like, oh crap, here comes the big battle. So moving into the next chapter, we pick up with everybody right now kind of staring at one another, because right now you have multiple parties here. You have Spider-Man and Black Cat, Iron Fist and Shang-Chi, Hammerhead, and you also have Elektra. You have about 4 different parties here in the room. Sorry, 5, because I forgot about Moon Knight. You have 5 different groups here in the room, all wanting something else. And so right now it's kind of like, what's going to happen here? And of course, you do have an all-out brawl, because right now each party does not like the other party. And so you have like Moon Knight fighting Spider-Man, Iron Fist fighting Hammerhead, or Elektra, Shang-Chi fighting Black Cat. Basically right now you have an all-out brawl between the different parties. Now, you do have Spider-Man kind of stop everybody by just webbing up the whole room. He's kind of like, listen, you know what? The best thing I can do here is just call the police and make sure you guys stay where y'all at right now, which, by the way, you guys are all webbed up. So there should be no way for you guys to break free before the cops get here. But the problem is, though, while he's talking on the phone to the police, that is when Elektra breaks free, and then everybody else breaks free as well, which does continue the fight once again. Now, 2 big things happen here in the 6th chapter. The first thing is Moon Knight getting stabbed. And with Moon Knight getting stabbed, you have Hammerhead pull him to the side, pull off his mask, pull out his cell phone, and take a photo of Moon Knight, and tells Moon Knight, listen, I own you now. I know who you are, and I know you are Moon Knight. But when I go home and I look into this picture, I will find out who you are. And this is me telling you that I own you. Now, While that is going on, you have Elektra just beat down on Spider-Man to the point where he gets thrown out the window and he lands right on a police car. And of course, this is Brian Michael Bendis making it seem like, oh crap, Peter Parker just died. Now, of course, we all know Spider-Man is not dead. Like, there's no way Brian Michael Bendis would kill Peter Parker off this early in his run. But you do have Peter Parker get back up after being thrown out the window by Elektra. Now, while he's kind of talking to Captain D. Wolf and her fellow police officers back on the top level, you have Elektra untie Hammerhead from Spider-Man's web, but then she stabs him multiple times. I mean, she just continues to stab him. And then she throws him out the window. Now, luckily, Peter was able to use his web to catch Hammerhead, but Hammerhead got stabbed multiple times by Elektra. And it's kind of like, dang, a lot of folks is being thrown out the window. The same window, by the way. Now, while Elektra is about to leave and head back over to Kingpin to tell him the mission is complete, that is when you have Black Cat kind of stop her and they start fighting against one another. Now guys, listen, Black Cat's a good fighter, but Elektra is a well-trained fighter. Matter of fact, guys, we covered the origin of Elektra in our Ultimate Elektra and Daredevil run. And in that story right there, we learned she's a well-trained fighter. And so for Black Cat, it is not a fair fight. And so right when Elektra is about to kill off Black Cat, that is when Moon Knight throws one little dagger in the back of Elektra's head. And then you have Black Cat throw her out the window. And it's kind of like, dang, man. A lot of folks are getting thrown out the window. What in the world is going on? Now, after all that happens right there, that is when the police finally go up to the top level to see if Iron Fist, Shang-Chi, and Black Cat are still there. And when they get there, of course, they are gone. Now, you do have Spider-Man kind of leave the scene as well. And when he goes to a different building, he does run into Black Cat. Now, guys, this is the part where I thought, years ago, when I read this book, I thought Spider-Man was about to get laid because you have Black Cat corner him, and I'm kind of like, yo, Peter Parker is about to get laid right now. Like, he about to get some loving. He's a single man. But right when Black Cat took off his mask and she realized that this man is a boy, he's a young boy, she just throws up and she runs away. And that's it. She literally just runs away. And it's kind of like, well, sorry, Peter, you'll never have your chance with Black Cat. Now, to go ahead and wrap up today's video, we do jump over to Kingpin Tower. And we do have Kingpin kind of talking to somebody in the shadows about everything that happened in today's video. But right before the story ends, we do kind of find out who Kingpin is talking to. And the person he's talking to is Captain D. Wolf. This whole time, Captain D. Wolf has been working alongside with the Kingpin and just playing mind games with Spider-Man, making him think that she's on his side, but in reality, she's on the Kingpin's payroll. And guys, this is where we're going to end To begin today's storyline, we pick up 1 month in the past, where you have the Wrecking Crew arriving to a Roxxon site that just got wrecked by a superhero in a supervillain battle. Now, this is a huge difference when it comes to the Wrecking Crew in Ultimate Marvel. In the main Marvel universe, they are basically Thor and Avenger villains. They just go around trying to fight different superheroes. But in the Ultimate Marvel universe, the Wrecking Crew goes around and repair places that has been wrecked by superhero beings fighting each other. When they arrive to the scene, They ask the man who works at this site for Roxxon what happened. He tells the Wrecking Crew how Spider-Man fought against Omega Red, another new character being introduced to us in the Ultimate Marvel Universe. Now, here's the big thing about Omega Red. Brian Michael Bendis, the writer of this book, used Omega Red as a throwaway character. He appears here to attack this Roxxon site for an unknown reason. He is literally here blowing the place up for the heck of it. I mean, he does give us a little hint that maybe someone had hired him to do this. Now, when it comes to Omega Red in the main Marvel universe, he is more of an X-Men villain, but also the fact he is a mutant, but he got in some upgrades from Russia that gave him some extra abilities. In the Ultimate Marvel universe, it is kind of hinted that his origin is exactly the same as his counterpart in the main Marvel universe. He is a mutant who got some upgrades from Russia. Only difference is he became a hired thug for people in this universe. But the fight is wrapped up in the first half of this first chapter. Now, while the Roxxon assistant is telling this story, we see that somebody is listening in on the conversation. This person is telling her boss, who is the owner of Roxxon, which is Donald Roxxon. But she is telling her boss that Spider-Man was involved in this Omega Red person as well. We're fighting at his site. But you have Donald Roxxon tell this mysterious person to bring in Spider-Man because apparently Spider-Man has been protecting different Roxxon sites over the last couple months, which means that Spider-Man must know who is trying to attack the Roxxon company. And so now this mysterious person must bring in Spider-Man for some questioning. Now, the next few pages is this mysterious person in her team watching over Spider-Man for 2 whole weeks, trying to figure out how to capture Spider-Man, how to bring him in for some questioning. Like, they follow him all over the city, trying to pinpoint where he actually goes. Who could this man be? How is he involved with Roxxon? Like, they study his movement, hoping to figure out who could this man be. Now, they were able to figure out that Spider-Man has some kind of connection to Midtown High. And so they wait for the right time to get the jump on Spider-Man to bring him in. Now, when it comes to the present day, they try their hand on grabbing Spider-Man. And so when Spider-Man arrives to school like he usually does, goes on the roof, hides somewhere to change, they move in and knock out Spider-Man while he just finished changing into his regular clothes. We then jump over to a random warehouse where this team of people have Peter Parker tied up to a chair. You then have our mysterious character be revealed to us, and we come to find out it is Silver Sable, and this is her Wolfpack team that she used to complete missions. But when they wake up Peter Parker, they come to find out it is not Peter Parker, aka Spider-Man. It is actually Flash Thompson instead. And they find out real quick that he is definitely not Spider-Man, and they just kidnapped a random kid from Midtown High. Now, when it comes to the second chapter of this story, we actually jump over to Peter Parker, who is still at Midtown High, but he is thinking about his new girlfriend, which is actually Kitty Pryde from the X-Men. Now, they began dating in Ultimate Spider-Man Annual #1. And we skipped that book because, well, it was not really needed, because it just tells us how the two of them became a couple, and that's really it. But while he is thinking about Kitty, he is confronted by Kong, who is the best friend of Flash Thompson. And he is just telling Peter is that basically Flash is missing and he is not answering his phone, which we all know why he is not answering his phone, because he was kidnapped by Silver Sable and her Wolfpack. We then jump over to Silver Sable, Flash Thompson in the Wolfpack. And you have Sable in the Wolfpack kind of discuss the fact that they do not have Spider-Man and what they should do with Flash Thompson. Now, we do get a glimpse on how the Wolfpack made the mistake on grabbing Flash and not grabbing Peter. We come to find out at the last second, Peter went in a different direction because he saw Flash and did not want to be seen. And so when he left, the Wolfpack only saw Flash instead and grabbed him. But when we jump back to the warehouse, you have the group trying to figure out what to do here with Flash Thompson. That is when you have Flash wait for the right moment to push all of them so he can escape out the side door. Of course, you have the Wolfpack try to go after him, but he gets away. But he was able to get away from the Wolfpack. Now we jump forward about a couple hours and we pick up with Silver Sable meeting up with Donald Roxxon. Now he wants to call this all off because when he hired Silver Sable, he was told that she is somebody who could handle these things. She is supposed to be a professional when it comes to this kind of stuff. But when Flash got away, his family quickly told the media what happened about him being kidnapped because people thought he was Spider-Man. And Roxxon does not want this getting back to him. But you have Silver Sable say that she will be able to deliver Spider-Man. She is kind of begging him not to call it a quit just yet. Just give her some more time to figure out the next move here for them. Now we do jump to the next day, and this is a rough day for Peter Parker because when he gets there, all he sees is all these different news channels there asking the school questions like, does Spider-Man go to Midtown High? Because this is now another incident that says, hey, listen, Spider-Man could be here at Midtown High. It could be a teacher. It could be a student. Because guys, remember, ever since Peter has became Spider-Man multiple times, Midtown High has been involved in some kind of Spider-Man adventure. And so right now you have all these news channels asking, does Spider-Man go to Midtown High? Now, what makes the day even harder for Peter Parker is that now he can no longer escape school to go be Spider-Man because now the school has a bunch of different security guards around the school to make sure every single person is okay. Make sure that nobody else gets kidnapped. But then what makes the day even worse for Peter Parker is when Mary Jane walks up. And Mary Jane tells Peter that she now knows about him and Kitty Pryde dating because he did not tell her, but she saw him leaving school with Kitty Pryde, holding hands and being a couple, which tells her, oh my God, he dumped me for her. Now, to wrap up the second chapter, when Peter walks into school, he is stopped by a random security guard because now this school has random bag checks and they want to check Peter Parker's bag, the same bag that is holding his Spider-Man outfit. Now, luckily for Peter Parker, someone does come by and pretend to be Spider-Man, which makes security guards leave Peter Parker alone and deal with this person who is trying to be Spider-Man. Now, Peter Parker starts to panic because he knows if he stays here at the school, sooner or later, someone else is going to try to search his bag and they will find the Spider-Man outfit. And so the only idea he has left is to leave the school. Get out of there without being stopped by the media, a teacher, or even a security guard, because his secret identity will be blown if he is caught trying to sneak out. But the one place he runs to is the only person at the moment he thinks he can talk to, which is Aunt May. Now, when he gets to Aunt May's job, that is when he tries to tell her the truth about everything. The fact that he is Spider-Man and now he has to be careful because what is going on at the school. But before he is able to say something about him being Spider-Man, Aunt May kind of tells Peter how she feels about Spider-Man, which is the fact that she hates Spider-Man with a passion. And so with her going off on the matter of fact how much she does not like Spider-Man, Peter does not say a thing at all about him being Spider-Man. Now you have Peter kind of say to himself that maybe he should handle this whole thing before something else happens. And so what he does, he goes over to Flash Thompson's house to ask him information on who had possibly taken him and where in the world he can find them. Because Peter Parker's goal is to find these people before they kidnap another kid, because they believe that kid could be him. And so after gathering all the information from Flash Thompson, you have Peter go over to the warehouse Flash was taken to. Now, as soon as he gets there, he is attacked from behind by a few members of the Wolf Pack. Now, the way this fight goes, it does seem like the Wolf Pack is unable to stop Spider-Man, because he takes them out one by one very quickly. Matter of fact, even when Silver Sable joins the battle, he takes her out as well, like she's not even a threat to him at all. But the thing is though, as soon as he wraps up the battle, he does grab her cell phone to use it to call police to take her and her wolf pack away. But the thing is, when it comes to Silver Sable, she always has a backup plan. And we come to find out that her cell phone was booby-trapped. And so when Peter tries to use her phone basically shocks Peter to the point that he is knocked out. And so now they can deliver him to Roxxon to ask him a few questions. Now, with the 4th chapter, the book does open up with the origin of Silver Sable. We come to learn right off the bat that Silver had a rough life. Dad was never home, Mom was drinking a lot and was mean to Silver. But to also throw out the fact that she was a troubling child. She would act out at school every day, and she grew up hating her father and her own mother as well. But when she hit her teenage years, that is when she got word of how her father wanted to talk to her. The reason why is because he was dying, and he wanted to see his daughter one more time. That is when we come to find out that her father would go around and try to capture war criminals around the world. That is why he has not been home all this time. But after he died, that is when she asked his friends to teach her everything they know about this life and help her to be just like her father. We then jump back over to the present day, and we pick up with Peter Parker being tied down to a chair by Silver Sable and Roxxon, the man who hired her to bring in Spider-Man. And so when he wakes up, he also realized that his mask has been taken off by them as well. But after he figures that out, you have Roxxon begin to ask his questions on why has Spider-Man been there every single time something is going on at a Roxxon site. Spider-Man is shown different footage of him fighting different villains, but you have Spider-Man just tell Roxxon that he is being a hero, because that is what heroes do. They basically try to save the day. Now you have Silver Sable try to run Spider-Man Prince in the system to figure out what his real name is, but when she does that, of course, Spider-Man is protected by S.H.I.E.L.D. And so when they decided to run his Prince, S.H.I.E.L.D. got notification, and with that happening, you have Nick Fury tell his team to get a move out, because now he knows somebody has Spider-Man. That is when we jump back to Roxxon's office, and you have Silver Sable and her team start to freak out because they realize that S.H.I.E.L.D. is able to track their location, which means they have to get the heck out of there, because if they don't, well, S.H.I.E.L.D. will just arrest them. And so you have Silver Sable tell her team to start packing everything up and get ready to move, but also tell Roxxon that the deal is off, because crap is about to go down very soon. But that is when you have a bomb go off from the outside, blowing up Roxxon's office. which helps Spider-Man break out from his chair and put on his mask, but he has to go save Roxxon from falling from his death. But after the bomb goes off and Spider-Man is able to save Roxxon from falling from his death, that is when you have Silver Sable in the Wolf Pack and Spider-Man realize that somebody else was sent here to kill Roxxon, and that person is a new character being introduced to us, and that character is Ultimate Vulture. This is the first appearance of Ultimate Vulture in the Ultimate Marvel Universe. When it comes to Vulture, he was one of Spider-Man's first villains. Shoot, he first appeared in the Amazing Spider-Man #2, which made him the early entry to Spider-Man's Rogue Gallery. But the big difference here is that the Vulture in that comic was Adrian Toomes, and he was the first Vulture. Because in the main Marvel Universe, you had about 4 different people take up the Vulture mantle. But in the Ultimate Marvel Universe, Adrian Toomes did not become the Vulture. Instead, you had Blackie Draco, which I really hope I pronounce his name correctly. But he became the first Vulture in the Ultimate Universe, because Blackie Draco in the main Marvel Universe was the second Vulture, after the first one had kind of retired a little bit. But the thing is, in the Ultimate Marvel Universe, Blackie Draco is actually the first Vulture. So the big question is though, where is Adrian Toomes in the Ultimate Marvel Universe? Now, while the fight is going on between Spider-Man and the Vulture, Roxxon gets a call on his cell phone from a mysterious man who apparently does not like Roxxon, that he was the one who sent Omega Red, Killer Strike, and now Vulture to attack all of these different Roxxon sites and try to kill Roxxon off as well. Because this man wants to kill off Roxxon. Now, we do not get to learn who the man on the phone is just yet, but you do have him tell Roxxon that he will never give up. Now, luckily for Roxxon, Nick Fury was tracing the call to see what is going on, because after the fingerprint thing, he sent a team in to check up on Spider-Man, to only see him fighting Vulture and to see Roxxon hanging from the side of a building. Now, you do have Spider-Man wrap up his battle with the Vulture very quickly and check up on everyone else to see what is going on, only to find out that Roxxon is gone, but also the fact that Silver Sable is gone as well. Now, you do have Iron Man and Nick Fury go to New Jersey to see what is going on with the person who was sending people to kill off Roxxon. That is when you have the two go to an unknown location and we get another new character introduced to us. And this is the Ultimate Tinkerer. But you have Nick Fury realize that this man has some crazy tech in this building that should be in the hands of S.H.I.E.L.D. But you also have Nick Fury tell Tinkerer that he knows why he was sending people to kill off Roxxon, because Roxxon fired Ultimate Tinkerer. And so to get his revenge, he hired Vulture, Killer Strike, and Omega Red to kill him off. And so you have Nick Fury tell Tinkerer he has 2 options here, which one, work for S.H.I.E.L.D., or he could be arrested and never be able to see the light of day ever again. And guys, that So we pick up with Spider-Man fighting against the Ringer, which his real name is Anthony Davis. Now, in the main Marvel universe, the Ringer was a character who got cybernetic upgrades to use in battle. But the Ringer was a character most people did not care about in the main Marvel universe. But here in the Ultimate Universe, his powers are based on him throwing a bunch of rings as a way to battle against his foes. Now, Brian Michael Bendis used this as a way to remind us as well that Kitty Pryde is still the girlfriend of Peter Parker. Matter of fact, she does join in on the fight as well to help Spider-Man fight against the Ringer. This is not anything special really, just introducing another character in the Ultimate Marvel Universe. But Kitty Pryde and Spider-Man are able to take him out very quickly. Now this is the point where to me you have Spider-Man and Kitty Pryde relationship start to fall apart, because the way they interact with each other after taking out the Ringer, they start to ask the question on how they're going to keep this going, because they do have some complications with their relationship with the fact that Kitty Pryde is an X-Men. The whole world knows about her and her teammates. Plus, since she has been hanging around with Spider-Man, where the world is now starting to put together that she and Spider-Man are a couple, it leads into the question on how can they go on dates as Peter Parker and Kitty Pryde without people figuring out that he is Spider-Man. But those questions get put on hold with the X-Jet arriving to pick up Kitty Pryde to take her home to the X-Mansion. Now, when she gets back home to the X-Mansion, she realized that something is off, because when she walks in, the whole place is quiet, which is really unusual for the school. But when she goes into the kitchen, she runs into Wolverine in the kitchen, which out of nowhere he pulls out a knife and tries to attack her. And so she escapes into another room by phasing through the wall. But then she runs into Storm, but just like Wolverine, Storm tries to attack Kitty Pryde as well. And so you have Kitty escape into another room to get away. Now she does phase down to the sub-level of the X-Mansion and tries to reach the main computer so she can call in for some kind of help. The problem is though, when she phased through the computer short circuit and she was only able to send out the X-Jet before a bunch of people come from behind and knock her out. But with the X-Jet being sent out for help before Kitty Pryde passed out, at the home of Peter Parker and Aunt May, Peter is saying goodbye to Aunt May when she is about to go out on her date. But then he sees out his window in the distance, he sees the X-Jet back at the same place it picked Kitty Pryde up from. And so you have him swing over there to see maybe Kitty Pryde is back for something, or the slight chance something is wrong. But when he changes into his Spider-Man outfit and swings over there to see what is going on, he sees that the X-Jet is empty. But then the X-Jet closes its doors, trapping Spider-Man inside, which then of course flies him back over to the X-Mansion. But when he gets there and sees that the school is too quiet, he decides to walk in to see if everything is okay. But then he gets knocked out by who he thinks is Kitty Pryde. But comes to find out, it is actually someone who has the ability to change their appearance. Where we find out it was Deadpool. This is the first appearance of Ultimate Deadpool in Marvel Comics. Now when Spider-Man wakes up, he sees that him and the X-Men are all trapped in cuffs and they are riding in a helicopter. That's when he gets another look at Deadpool and his fellow teammates with him as well. But before he is able to ask a question or even try to break out of his handcuffs, Deadpool knocks Spider-Man back out again until they get to their destination. Of course, when they do get there, you have Deadpool wake everyone up for the next part of his plan, which is kicking all of the X-Men and Spider-Man out of the chopper, and they are falling headfirst towards a random island. Now of course, you have Spider-Man able to save himself before hitting the ground hard. Now the big question is though, where in the world are they? because Spider-Man has no idea where he is, and right now he has to find other people on his side to figure out what in the world is going on. But when he is trying to break out of his cuffs, he gets attacked from behind by a random half-man, half-machine looking dude. Now, of course, Spider-Man is able to use his powers and web shooters to defend himself against this random man. He then runs into Colossus, which of course, Colossus is trying to calm Spider-Man down because Spider-Man is freaking out about the whole situation at the moment. But you have Colossus also state the fact that he has no idea where he is at either right now. But you have Colossus point out that they need to find other people so they can work as a team to get somewhere safe. But that is when they see a random optic beam in the air, which tells them it is Cyclops who needs help. Which when they do find him, he is fighting against another man who has machinery body parts. But thanks to Spider-Man and Colossus, they were able to save him and get rid of the machinery looking dude. But then you have Storm appear as a way to show Colossus, Spider-Man, and Cyclops where they are now. They are back on Krakoa, and I know I'm going to mispronounce his name so many times. Now, Krakoa is something we saw back in Ultimate X-Men videos. Krakoa is an island where a TV show is done on where mutants are hunted for entertainment. We talk about how Krakoa is completely different from the main Marvel universe, because in the main Marvel universe, Krakoa is a being that is actually alive and plays a big role in Giant Size X-Men #1, where we got the new X-Men team from. But in Ultimate Marvel, it's just an island that a TV show uses for its show that is run by Mojo. But the X-Men, the last time they were here, they shut the island down and went back home. But looks like the show is back up running again, with Deadpool and his fellow mates being the new people who hunt mutants down. Now, Spider-Man, Colossus, and Storm, and Cyclops, do find the rest of the X-Men, but as soon as they regroup with one another, Deadpool and his fellow mates begin their second waves of attacks. Now, the third chapter is literally used as a way to explain the origin of Deadpool while he is fighting against the X-Men and Spider-Man for the TV show. But we learned that Deadpool's name is Wade Wilson, but Deadpool fought in the Wakanda Wars, and apparently he was badly injured in that war. But he was lucky enough that he was given cybernetic parts to give him another chance in life. But with his hatred of mutants and finding Mojo Television, the cybernetic parts that he received gave him different forms of abilities to be able to hunt down the mutants he was hired to kill. Now, the people who are with Deadpool, they are going by the name the Reavers, but they are just like Deadpool in a way, where Deadpool was injured and given parts for a second chance of life. These guys want to help kill mutants so bad, they gave up their bodies to these new cybernetic parts to help the TV show kill off the mutants. Now, this is a little bit different from the main Marvel universe, where in the main Marvel universe, the Reavers are actually a bunch of people with cybernetic enhancements, but they actually work with the Hellfire Club instead. The Reavers in the X-Men comics in the main Marvel universe play a huge role in the X-Men comics. That is even where Lady Deathstrike came from as well, who plays a semi-important role in Wolverine's Rogue Gallery. But in the Ultimate Marvel universe, the Reavers don't get that much love as they do in the main Marvel universe. But jumping back into the battle, you have the X-Men and Spider-Man trying their best to stop Deadpool and the Reavers. All of this is being played right now on live television right at this moment. But then you have some of the X-Men wonder, Where is Charles Xavier? He's the only one who is not here at the moment. Does that mean they have been able to capture him as well? But that is when you have Spider-Man getting tired of everything. And so what he does is that he goes over and grabs Deadpool and unmasks him in front of everyone. But you have everyone stop fighting because after Spider-Man unmasks Deadpool, we see that Deadpool is supposed to be Charles Xavier. Somehow, Charles Xavier is Deadpool at this moment, and everyone is so shocked about this reveal. Now, of course, we all know that this is not Charles Xavier, because if you remember back in the beginning of this story, Kitty Pryde was hit by someone who could shapeshift. That person was Deadpool, and he has the ability to do that. But also the fact that Spider-Man Spider-Sense has a way to help him figure out who is the fake and who is the real person. And so he knew right off the bat that this is not Charles Xavier. The real Charles Xavier is missing still, and you had the battle between Deadpool and the X-Men continue on. But we learned that Charles Xavier has been kidnapped as well, except he is with Mojo in the main building away from the rest of the X-Men. Now, the story does wrap up with the X-Men and Spider-Man continuing their fight with Deadpool. And of course, the X-Men start to beat down on Deadpool and his Reavers in a hurry, which Deadpool gets taken out thanks to Kitty Pryde. And since Kitty Pryde has the ability to phase through things, when she phases through technology, she makes them short circuit and go all crazy. And since Deadpool's body is mostly cybernetic, when Kitty Pryde phases through his body, well, it makes Deadpool apparently explode, which takes him off the board. The rest of the X-Men were able to defeat the rest of the group of Reavers as well. And so now the X-Men main goal is to get to the main building and bring down the broadcast once again, hopefully to see if they can find Charles Xavier as well. But you have the X-Men able to get to the main building and begin looking for Charles Xavier, which of course they do find him, and they see that he was able to get away from Mojo. With all of that happening, you have the X-Men and Spider-Man take a plane to get off the island and go home. But while they are flying off, we see that Deadpool did survive after he exploded. But here's the big thing though. We won't see Deadpool ever again. If I remember correctly, we never see Deadpool in another Ultimate Marvel comic ever again. I think he only appears in Deadpool Kills Deadpool, and that is really it. But the story wraps up with Kitty Pryde walking Spider-Man home, and this was supposed to be the moment where Peter Parker was supposed to tell Aunt May about him being Spider-Man. But when they both walk in, they find out real quick that Aunt May is not home. She is still out on her date with the man she went out with, which we come to find out it is Miles Warren, which is a name that is very important in the main Marvel comics with Spider-Man. Basically, the man behind the Clone Saga. But she is staying over his place for the night, and that is how the story really gets wrapped up. So our story opens up a few months in the past, where we pick up with Peter Parker out in town being Spider-Man, which usually it is him just going around trying to see if anyone needs to be saved. But that is when he sees someone being chased by another person, and it seems like that person needs help. And so you have Peter Parker go down there as Spider-Man to save this person. Now, when he gets down there, he does try to fight the person who's doing all of the shooting and using swords to kill the person who is trying to run away. But when Peter is able to stop the mysterious figure from shooting, that is when he finds out the person he is trying to save is actually a vampire, and this vampire is about to bite down on Spider-Man. But at the very last second, we come to find out the person who was doing the chasing was actually Blade, and he was trying to stop the vampire. Now, after Blade kills the vampire, he leaves Spider-Man there wondering what the heck is going on. Now, something else I want to point out is that Blade is a character we will barely see again because they never use him that much in the Ultimate Marvel Universe. Now we do jump forward to the present day, where we pick up with Peter Parker talking on the phone with Kitty Pryde while he is at work. Now, this was used as a way to remind us that Peter Parker and Kitty Pryde are now dating at this current time in Ultimate Spider-Man. But while he's on the phone with his girlfriend, seeing if they are on the verge of breaking up or actually staying together, that is when you have J. Jonah Jameson yelling at Ben Urich about what he just recently wrote for an article, which was a story stating the idea of vampires are running around New York. But is Jonah saying he needs more information than some girl who is crazy and locked up stating the fact that she was bitten by a vampire? And so you have Ben Urich hand Peter his story and just walks away, seeming like he gives up trying to get the story out to the public. That is when Peter reads the story that Ben Urich had wrote up, where we come to find out that this young girl named Jennifer, who worked in the library, was just minding her business until some strange fellow walked up on her. And just like that, she was in a trance. She states that she had no idea what came over her, but he was able to grab her and bite down on her neck. But with that happening, she went into shock. And when she woke up, she was locked up in some kind of asylum. That is when you have Ben Urich go into and interview her to get some more information about what had happened to her. But she keeps stating the same fact over and over again, how some man was able to put her in a trance and then he was sucking her blood out of her neck. And then he disappeared right after that. We then jump forward to the next day, and we pick up with Peter Parker right now walking around his high school campus. But that is when he runs into Mary Jane, which of course at this point they are not on good terms, with the fact that he dumped her because she has no way to protect herself when a supervillain comes around. Also, the fact that he moved on and started dating Kitty Pryde right after that. But now she has another reason to be mad because of Spider-Man's last adventure. Now remember, in our last video, Peter Parker and the X-Men were captured by Deadpool. They were also being hunted down on live television, which leads into another reason why Mary Jane is upset. Because now there is a photo of him being Spider-Man cuddling with Kitty Pryde in the middle of the battle. And so of course, with everything that had happened so far, and now including this as well, Mary Jane is at the point she wants to stop talking to him completely. Now we do jump over to Ben Urich, and this time he is going to meet up with the girl who claimed she was bitten by a vampire, because Ben Urich believes that he is able to work with this story. But when the door opens up so that he can talk to Jennifer, that is when we come to find out that she has been completely turned into a vampire, which of course for Ben Urich, this is a problem. But with that happening, we jump forward a day and we pick up with Peter Parker arriving to work, only to find out that Ben Urich is now missing and the police are trying to get a lead on where in the world he could be at. That is when you have Peter Parker go to the last possible location, which would be the home of Jennifer, which was the girl who said that she was bitten by a vampire. And so Peter knows it has to be the location on where Ben Urich could be at. The thing is though, is that when Spider-Man arrives to the location, he sees a wolf flying out the window that turns into a bunch of bats and then turns back into one wolf again back into the window. And so with Spider-Man seeing that, he knows he has to jump in. And of course, that's when he sees Jennifer now as a vampire holding Ben Urich as an hostage. And so with that happening, Peter jumps into the fight. And of course, he is getting overrun by these two other vampires. That is when you have Mobius appear for the first time in Ultimate Marvel and tell Spider-Man to get the heck out of here. Now, when it comes to Morbius, he was another character Brian Michael Bendis brought into the Ultimate Marvel universe. But the big thing is though, just like Blade, he was another character that hardly ever got used. Matter of fact, this is the only story we will ever see Morbius in the Ultimate Marvel universe. When I tell you guys we will never see him again, we will never see him again. But you do have an all-out brawl in the middle of this apartment where you have Morbius trying to kill off the vampires, and you have Spider-Man trying to get Ben Urich out of there because it seems like he was bitten by Jennifer, who was turned into a vampire. But you have this part wrapped up with Morbius killing off Jennifer and Spider-Man getting Ben out of the apartment. Now you do have Spider-Man take Ben Urich to a nearby hospital, trying to get him some kind of help before he dies, which of course that leads into the hospital thinking that Spider-Man was the one who hurt Ben, which Spider-Man just has to hand Ben over to the hospital and get the heck out of there before causing a huge scene in the middle of the hospital. Which we do jump forward a couple hours and we see that Morbius is trying to sneak into the hospital, trying to see Ben, which at first it does seem like maybe Morbius is there to kill off Ben. But right when Morbius goes in for the bite, you have Spider-Man swing in and try to fight against Morbius, which we do get a couple panels of the two fighting against each other. But once the fight is done, you have Morbius tell Spider-Man that he is not here to kill Ben. He is actually here to save his life. That Morbius is one of the good vampires, which is rare in the first place. But Morbius is here to save his life. And the other two Spider-Man saw earlier was him trying to save Ben and get rid of bad vampires. Which of course, when Morbius goes in for the bite, Spider-Man freaks out and tries to stop Morbius, and Morbius just knocks him out into the main hallway of the hospital. That is when you have Spider-Man see everyone running away, wondering what the heck are they running away from. That is when he sees that there are other vampires here at the hospital as well, which the big question comes in my head and probably yours too. Where in the world did these vampires come from? We do not get that answer to that question. They are just there and the story moves on. But you have the vampires bite down on Spider-Man, but since his blood is radioactive to vampires, his blood is tainted and they cannot do anything with him because of his blood. But with them trying to drink his blood and fail, Spider-Man is able to fight back finally. And you have Morbius join the battle, which of course the battle is wrapped up with the two characters getting rid of the vampires. Which after the battle, you have Morbius do two things, which is him telling Spider-Man that he will live, that his blood is tainted, and vampires won't come after him. Even if they do, his blood is basically a secondary defense against them. Then you have him show Spider-Man that he is a good vampire by showing Peter that he was able to save Ben Urich's life. Because when he shows Peter how Ben is doing, you have Ben laying in bed all happy and looking normal once again. Then you have Morbius tell Peter that the next time they meet up, Peter better grow the heck up for both their sakes, which of course, like I said earlier, Morbius does not reappear in Marvel Comics ever again after this storyline right here, which honestly is kind of disappointing for this character. But guys, that is the end of this two-part story of Ultimate Spider-Man. Now, to begin today's storyline, we pick up with Peter Parker on the phone with Kitty Pryde. Now, this is a reminder that Peter Parker and Kitty Pryde at this point in Ultimate Marvel are still dating. But the big thing here at this point in the storyline is that Kitty Pryde is upset with Peter Parker. And the reason why is because at the end of Ultimate Spider-Man, the Morbius storyline, Peter Parker went to Mary Jane. Now, I forgot to mention that in that video, but after Morbius basically helped Peter Parker out with the vampires, Peter Parker was so freaked out, he went home to Mary Jane, and Mary Jane was there to talk to him and get him through that vampire situation. Now, Kitty Pryde feels like since she is the girlfriend of Peter Parker, he should have gone to her, not Mary Jane, because once again, Kitty Pryde is the girlfriend, but also Kitty Pryde knows that Peter Parker is madly in love with Mary Jane. And so as soon as she says that Peter Parker is in love with Mary Jane, Peter Parker just hangs up the phone because he has no idea how to deal with Kitty Pryde being angry at him. Now we jump over to Peter meeting up with Mary Jane at the mall, and this is Brian Michael Bendis beginning to bring these two characters back together because we pick up with them at the mall hanging out, and they do bring up some topics like Kitty Pryde, the vampire problem, and also their past dating life. Now these two were about to have a moment here until someone starts to wreck the mall, which of course Spider-Man has to send Mary Jane away to go figure out what in the world is going on. And so he does change into his Spider-Man outfit to see what is happening in the mall. Now when Peter gets to the point of the attack, he is introduced to Ultimate Scorpion, and this is huge because this is the first appearance of Ultimate Scorpion in this universe. But you do have these two fight against each other in the middle of the mall. But while they are fighting, you have Scorpion start to say all these crazy things about him not falling for Spider-Man's tricks. And he also says that he is smarter than Spider-Man. Now, Spider-Man has no idea what this man is talking about, but Scorpion seems to be a tad bit crazy. Now, while these two continue to fight against each other, it gets to the point that Spider-Man has to hurry up and finish this fight, because this fight starts to affect innocent people in the mall. But when Spider-Man keeps punching Scorpion in the face, he was able to crack the helmet of Scorpion. Which that's where we come to find out that Scorpion is Peter Parker, a clone of Peter Parker, which now the question is, how did this even happen? Now we do jump over to Mary Jane, and guys remember, right after the Scorpion started to attack the mall, Mary Jane went straight home. Matter of fact, when she walked in, she told her mother what happened at the mall. But after she told her mother what happened to the mall, she went up into her room to write in her diary. But as soon as she began to write in her diary, someone came up from behind and grabbed her. And just like that, Mary Jane is gone. There is no Mary Jane to be found. And it's kind of like, who just grabbed her? Now the story does jump forward a couple hours, maybe only an hour, but we pick up with Spider-Man right now taking the Scorpion to the Baxter Building. The reason why is because in the Baxter Building, you have the Fantastic Four. Now with the Fantastic Four, you have Reed Richards, and he is in this universe the smartest person on the planet. Now Spider-Man had built a small bond with the Human Torch in one of our previous videos, but with that bond, Spider-Man knows that he can take this clone to Reed Richards to see what is going on here, because right now there's two Peter Parkers in this universe. Which of course you have Spider-Man tell the Fantastic Four to run a few tests on the Scorpion, because Spider-Man wants some answers. Now, the Fantastic Four do not have an idea that Spider-Man is Peter Parker, but as soon as Reed Richards finished running his test, his DNA test, he tells Spider-Man the test shows that the Scorpion is Peter Parker. And that is when you have Spider-Man reveal that he is Peter Parker, that the Scorpion must be a clone of him. Now, with that happening right there, you do have Reed Richards call up Nick Fury, and he asks Nick Fury, hey, are you guys over there at S.H.I.E.L.D. right now doing some cloning stuff? And that's when you have Nick Fury say no, because cloning is illegal. It is highly a huge no in the American government. And you have Nick Fury say, nope, over here at S.H.I.E.L.D., we are not cloning anybody. Now, of course, you do have Peter Parker say he is lying, but you have Reed Richards say, no, he is not lying. I have technology to read Nick Fury, and honestly, he was not lying. My computer says that man was telling the truth. Now, you do have Reed send Peter Parker back home and say, leave the clone here with me to figure out what is going on with this clone. Now, things get worse for Peter Parker when he gets home to his house, because he is greeted by Aunt May, and she tells him that Mary Jane is missing, and right now, no one has an idea where she could be at. And so you have Spider-Man run over to Mary Jane's house to see if it is true that she is missing, which of course you have her mother tell Peter Parker, yes, Mary Jane is missing, and they don't have an idea where she could be at. And so right now you have Peter Parker go to the one place she could be at, which is this old abandoned warehouse, because they go there to hang out sometimes. But when he walks into the abandoned warehouse, he is greeted by some woman in a spider outfit. And so with that, Peter starts to freak out, which this man has the right to freak out, because you are now talking about maybe this person being another clone of Peter Parker. And so when he asks this woman, where is Mary Jane? You have her dodge that question and tries to tell him that something else is going on, which he needs to get ready for that instead. But Peter ignores what she is saying and they start to fight. Now, she is able to beat him only because Peter is fighting her out of anger. He is not thinking straight. And so she is able to beat him and leave him in the warehouse to lick his wounds. Now, the second chapter of this story closes with two big things happening at the end of this chapter. The first thing is that Peter goes to his old house because Aunt May and Peter Parker moved to a new house because Uncle Ben and Gwen Stacy died in their old home. And so they felt like it would be better for them to move out and start over. But the problem is though, when Peter goes there to look for Mary Jane, he does not find her. Instead, he finds Gwen Stacy, which is huge because she died in the Ultimate Carnage storyline. And so how in the world is she here right now? Now we do get one more thing happen in this chapter, and we see that Mary Jane is trapped inside some kind of container. But when she wakes up, she sees that she is in the old Oscorp building, which of course is the birthplace of Spider-Man, Green Goblin, Hobgoblin, and Doc Ock. But then she sees someone in the shadows, which of course she's able to figure out that it is Peter Parker. But it's not hers Peter Parker, which she did get a better look at this Peter Parker, and that's when she screams. But the problem is though, we have no idea what this other Peter Parker looks like. Now we do jump back over to the Fantastic Four, because they are still running tests on the Scorpion since he is the clone of Spider-Man. Which of course, when they try to wake him up to see if he'll be okay for them to talk to, the Scorpion goes crazy again and tries to break out the container they have him in. Now, the Fantastic Four were able to put him back to sleep, but you have Reed and Susan agree that it is time to bring in Nick Fury. Now here comes the big problem with them calling in Nick Fury. When he gets there, he confirms that he never had a plan to do a cloning project. But seeing the Scorpion, this also tells him that someone else is doing this, because he tells the Fantastic Four that S.H.I.E.L.D. had no plan in this at all. After saying that, you have Nick Fury call up the Spider Slayers, which is something he gained at the end of the Silver Sable storyline, which he plans to go after Spider-Man because something like this cannot be out in the public eye right now. So we jump over to Mary Jane, and right now we see that she's still trapped inside the container. Now we know she was kidnapped by someone who has to be involved in all of this mess. But that is when you have her able to get the chance to see the face of the person who kidnapped her, which we come to find out that is of course is another clone of Peter Parker. This one though is Kane, which is huge. So in the main Marvel universe, Kane was the first clone of Peter Parker, but he was defective, which you can tell by his face. Plus we were told he was the first clone of Peter Parker, and so he was thrown out by the Jackal, who was the man who made all the clones in the Clone Saga back in the 1990s. But in this universe, we don't truthfully have an idea that if he is the first clone of Peter Parker, but we can tell that he is defective by the look of his face. Now we jump over to Peter Parker, which right now we see him still dealing with the fact that Gwen Stacy is alive again, but with no idea how she is back. And so you have him explain to her how she died, how she was killed by some red monster, which of course we know he is talking about Carnage. But after she died, they moved because this house was full of death. Now you have Peter ask Gwen on how in the world is she here again? And you have her tell Peter that she does not really remember, but that she has a couple flashbacks of some hospital. The question is, what happened after that? But of course, she does not remember. But while Peter and Gwen are talking, that is when you have Aunt May walk in the room, which is huge because she never really been involved in a Spider-Man situation before until now. But when she sees Gwen Stacy, she freaks out and runs out the house screaming her head off because what she just saw. Now you have Peter basically open up to his Aunt May about everything, and this is where he reveals that he is Spider-Man. Now, unlike in the main Marvel universe where Aunt May was supportive of Peter telling her the truth of him being Spider-Man, you have this Aunt May just go off at Peter because this man has been lying to her ever since he became Spider-Man, and she had lost two people in her lives, Uncle Ben and Gwen Stacy. And so with their deaths, she's kind of like, this is all your fault. Everything bad that happened to me is because of you, and I want you out of my house. I do not want you around me no more. And it's kind of like, oh crap. But that is when Peter Parker is about to just walk away from Aunt May, that is when you have Richard Parker walk in. And this is huge because Richard Parker is the father of Peter Parker, and he has been supposedly dead this whole time. Now, the big number 100 issue is really important because in this one single book, you have a lot of things happen, but also it builds the story up to the point where it's kind of like, yo, This is probably the best Clone Saga out there. Not probably, it is the best Clone Saga out of all the Marvel Clone Sagas. But you do have Richard Parker let it known that Aunt May knew that he was alive. And that's a problem for Peter Parker because now his Aunt May knew that his father has been alive this whole time. Now, the big question is though, how long did Aunt May knew? Did she knew for years or did she just find out a couple weeks ago? That is the big question. But also you have Richard Parker say, listen, I also know about Gwen Stacy as well. And so I am here to give you guys all the answers you need to this big mystery. And so he goes to the fridge and pulls out a soda and also some cold pizza to explain what in the world is going on. Now you have Richard Parker go back over the concept of Venom in this universe. If you guys remember that the Venom suit was made to be a cure for cancer, but when Richard Parker and Eddie Brock Sr. took the suit to Roxxon, the company wanted the suit to be a weapon for the army. But you had them both say no. But since the suit was made under a Roxxon contract, they lost the rights to the suit. And so they had two options. One, work for Roxxon, or two, try to sue a billion-dollar company, which they cannot afford a good enough lawyer to fight a billion-dollar company. And so they agreed to work for Roxxon. But when it came to the day for them to get on a plane to fly over to Roxxon, the same plane that supposedly crashed and killed Peter and Eddie's parents, Richard Parker did not get on the plane. Instead, he walked away because he still felt like his suit should not be a weapon for the army, instead be a cure for cancer. That is when you have Richard Parker skip forward a couple weeks after the plane crash, which he tells that he was watching Peter, Ben, and May for weeks, but he knew that he could not confront them because he had been declared dead. But the biggest thing about this is that he was confronted by the CIA, which the CIA enrolled him into their program. Now, this is the CIA promising Richard Parker that he'll be able to continue to work on his project, which of course is the Venom suit. Now, you do have the CIA show Richard Parker a video of Peter years later as Spider-Man and him fighting against the suit. But you do have the CIA agent reveal the real reason why Richard Parker was recruited. Because the CIA is trying to bring down Nick Fury and S.H.I.E.L.D. because they believe that Nick Fury is actually a bad guy, that he is a crooked person. Now you do have Richard Parker talk about how he did confront Aunt May just a few weeks ago. Now of course you have Aunt May freak out and basically told Richard Parker that he could not ever see Peter because seeing his father alive would basically ruin Peter. And so to protect Peter Parker from the biggest lie of his life, Aunt May kept the fact about his father being alive and walking around this world. Now, before Richard Parker is able to explain about how Gwen Stacy is alive again, that is when you have Nick Fury outside the house of the Parkers with an army of Spider Slayers ready to take Spider-Man down. Now, as soon as Nick Fury and the army of Spider Slayers appeared, that's when you have Gwen Stacy start to act weird. Like her bones start breaking and she starts changing into something else. And that is when we see her turn into Carnage. We get the return of the ultimate Marvel Carnage. But the big question is though, how in the world is Gwen Stacy able to turn into the Carnage symbiote? That's the big question right there. But you have the Carnage symbiote basically go out there to fight Nick Fury and his army of Spider Slayers. But right when Gwen Stacy leaves to go fight against Nick Fury, that is when Aunt May has a heart attack. right there. And now she is slowly dying in the arms of Peter Parker and Richard Parker. Now, to wrap up the first half of this storyline, the story does jump back over to Mary Jane. Now, right now, you have Mary Jane still trapped inside the container. But that is when you have Kane walk up to the container to reveal that he has big plans for Mary Jane. Now, before he is able to reveal his big plans for her, that is when he gets attacked by another spider clone. Now, this one is honestly a minor character. He's just here to fight against Kane, but that's when you have these two fight against each other for a few pages, but Kane does end up winning the fight. But after he wins the fight, he does go up to Mary Jane to tell her, hey, listen, my plan already happened actually. I was able to put the Oz formula inside of you. The same thing that made Peter Parker be Spider-Man, or the Green Goblin, the Hobgoblin, and also Doc Ock. I put that same formula inside of you because I want you to be like me, so you can basically protect yourself when evil bad guys come your way. And guys, now we pick up where our last video left off at, where you now have Nick Fury and his army of spider slayers outside the Parker's house trying to bring him in to cover up this cloning problem that is going on. But remember, Gwen Stacy came back to life. At the end of our last video, she turned into a new version of Carnage. But something else to point out is that Aunt May had a heart attack at the end of our last video. And so she is dying while you have Carnage Gwen fighting against the Spider Slayers. Last but not least, remember that Peter Parker's father revealed to be alive this whole time. And now you have Richard Parker tell Peter to go out there and stop all of this while he tries to take care of Aunt May. Now you do have Peter and Carnage Gwen try to fight against Nick Fury's army of Spider Slayers, but there are too many of them to handle, and so they both get blasted to the ground, to the point where it seems like this could mean Peter is going to get arrested. But then we see the Fantastic Four jump in and try to defend Peter, because they know what Nick Fury is doing is outrageous. Now, you have Peter catch the Fantastic Four up to speed on what had happened, including his Aunt May having a heart attack. And so you have Susan Storm walk in to receive both Richard and Aunt May. Now, this is something else to point out, is that Richard Parker, who is supposed to be a doctor, he has not done anything to help Aunt May during her heart attack. So keep that in mind. Now, once you have Susan Storm get Aunt May out of there so that Peter, Carnage Gwen, and the rest of the Fantastic Four can fight Nick Fury's army. But the fight does not really last that long. It does get wrapped up very quickly, with Carnage Gwen being turned back to normal and Nick Fury's army shooting Peter with enough energy to stop him from attacking anymore. This time it does seem like Peter is about to be arrested. Now we jump over to Mary Jane, who is still being held hostage by Kane at the old Oscorp building, where we see him telling Mary Jane once again that he had infected her with the Oz formula, which the reason why he did this is because Peter always wanted to find a way to protect Mary Jane. And so with this being the clone of Peter, he just pursued that dream. But with Mary Jane hearing she has been infected with the Oz formula, she turns into some kind of monster. Now, all over online, people kept saying this was her turning into the Demo Goblin in the Ultimate Marvel Universe. Now we do jump back over to Peter being arrested by Nick Fury for the whole cloning problem. But that is when you have at the very last second the mysterious Spider-Woman appear and take him away from all of that mess. Now this is where we kind of learn a little bit of what is going on with the whole story with Peter Parker and a bunch of clones. Now, the first thing you have this mysterious woman do is reveal that she is a clone of Peter Parker as well, but she is going by the name of Jessica Drew, which of course in the main Marvel universe, that name belongs to Spider-Woman. Now, there's a huge difference between the two, with the Ultimate Marvel Jessica Drew being a clone of Peter Parker and having all of his spider powers plus organic webbing as well. In the main Marvel universe, she has her own set of powers and has nothing to do with Peter Parker. Her origin is more tied with Hydra than being a clone of Peter Parker. Now you have the Ultimate Marvel Jessica Drew tell Peter what she remembered. The first day she was created, she was greeted by Ben Reilly. Now remember that Ben Reilly is not a clone of Peter Parker in this universe. He is a young African American man, but he was the assistant of Kurt Connor when they both were working on the original Carnage. But something else for you guys to remember is that they used the blood of Peter Parker to make Carnage since they were trying to replace Venom, hoping to finish Richard Parker's project. But after Kurt Connor got arrested for making Carnage, Ben Reilly got away and also took the last sample of Peter's blood. But she tells Peter that the day she was made, she was greeted by Ben Reilly, how she was made again to be another project to replace Captain America. Because remember, Captain America was the breakout hero in the 1940s. And so you had all these different companies try to reproduce what made Captain America. That sounded like what Ben Reilly was trying to do. But while telling Jessica everything, that is when you have her get introduced to Cassandra Webb, which another character I will get into in another video. But right when they were giving her the rundown on everything, you have Carnage Gwen started to attack the base and well, free the other clones. Now, after she told the story, they both agreed that one of the clones must have taken Mary Jane. And so now their goal is to find out where did this one clone took her to, which Jessica Drew was able to figure out it was the old Oscorp building. And so you have the two go there and they see her turn into the Demo Goblin, which as soon as she sees Peter, she turns back into her normal self. Now you have Peter punch Kane in the face, which was the clone who turned Mary Jane into that monster. But you have Peter ask the question, where did he get the Oz formula from? That is when you have Dr. Octopus walk into the room saying he got it from him, that he is the father of Kane. But we don't get the chance to dive into that. Instead, we jump over to the X-Men right now watching the news, which this is another reminder that, hey, Kitty Pryde is technically the girlfriend of Peter Parker right now. But with her watching the news, she sees his house on TV, knowing that something is going on, which makes her tell the X-Men they are going to Queens to see if he needs some kind of help from them. Now, the story does shift over to Susan Storm and Richard Parker getting Aunt May to the hospital. But while they hand her over to the doctors, you have Susan Storm ask for a blood sample of Richard Parker because she believes something is up with him because he was unable to do anything to help Aunt May earlier with her heart attack since he's supposed to be a doctor. Now getting back over to Peter Parker, Jessica Drew, Nick Fury, Doc Ock, and the rest of the Fantastic Four, you have Doc Ock tell everyone in the room that he was the one who was behind the clones, that he made a deal with the American government because there are people who do not like Nick Fury in his plan to make the next Captain America. And so you have Doc Ock say these clones were the beginning for him to replace Nick Fury. Now you have Peter Parker hand Mary Jane over to the Fantastic Four so Reed can find a way to get the Oz out of her. Now there is one more thing Doc Ock reveals, that Richard Parker and Gwen Stacy are just another clones of Peter Parker that he made. And so all of these people popping up left and right is because of Doc Ock. Now, after all of this being revealed, you have Nick Fury tell his men to leave the room so Peter and his clones can have a conversation with Doc Ock alone, which is code for that Nick Fury is on Peter Parker's side and wants Peter to beat down on Doc Ock and get rid of him. And so you have Peter and his clones start to fight against Doc Ock, which, by the way, he lost his arms back in the Hollywood storyline. But that is when he reveals that even though he lost his mechanical arms, he has the ability to control metal like Magneto. That the Oz formula explosion that gave the birth to Green Goblin, Hobgoblin, and Spider-Man, but also bonded the arms to Doc Ock, gave him the ability to control metal just like Magneto. Now we jump back over to Reed Richards, the Thing, in the Human Torch at the Baxter Building, because right now Reed is trying to get rid of the Oz formula out of Mary Jane's body. But that is when she turns back into the Demogoblin and started to fight against the few members of the Fantastic Four. Now at first, they have a hard time trying to contain her, but when they show her the Scorpion clone of Peter Parker, she calms down and turns back into her human form. We then go over to Susan Storm talking to Richard Parker, where she tells him that he is a clone of Peter Parker, but he does not believe her because he was able to remember everything from the real Richard Parker's life. But she tells him that those memories were planted in his head by Doc Ock. Plus right now he is aging to the point where he will hit an older age, which will lead to him dying right there in front of Susan Storm on the roof. Now we finally jump over to Peter Parker and Jessica Drew trying to handle Doc Ock, which, by the way, Doc Ock killed the other clones who were there, like Kane in the Six-Armed One. But you have Doc Ock controlling all of the metal in the room, hoping to kill off Peter and Jessica Drew, which he would just start from scratch all over. He would just make a bunch of new clones. And so this fight does last a few pages. But at the end, of course, you have Peter and Jessica able to knock out Doc Ock and hand him back over to S.H.I.E.L.D. But after they defeat him, you have Jessica Drew leave before S.H.I.E.L.D. is able to come in there and grab her. And so with that, you have her out there as a free agent for any writer to use in their stories. But then we see Peter go outside to Nick Fury, which is Peter telling Nick to take him in. But that is when you have Peter and Nick find out that it was the FBI who made the deal with Doc Ock to make these clones. Before Peter is able to punch the man in charge of the FBI, you have Johnny Storm come to take Peter to see Mary Jane at the Baxter Building. Now this is the big moment of the closing chapter of this story, because after Peter gets picked up by Johnny Storm, he takes him to the Baxter Building to see Mary Jane, where you have Reed reveal that he was able to get rid of the Oz formula from the blood of Mary Jane, so she is no longer be able to turn into the Demogoblin. Also, you have Mary Jane and Peter reveal that they are still in love with one another. But you have Reed and Franklin Storm walk up to Peter and tell him that they can do the same thing for Peter Parker, that they can get rid of the Oz formula from his blood, and he will no longer be Spider-Man. Now you have Peter Parker shocked by this because he has been through so much in the past few hours. And so you have Peter tell Reed Richards that he needs some time to think about what to do with his powers. But the first thing he needs to do is check up on Aunt May to see if she's better now. And so he has the Human Torch take Peter to the hospital to see if she is okay. Now, of course, when Peter gets there, he is upset at himself because this is all his fault, with him being Spider-Man and the fact that his clones put so many of his loved ones in danger. But while he gets a few words into his Aunt May while she is unconscious, you have Susan Storm walk into the room to tell Peter that his father was a clone, that he just died a few minutes ago. And so now Peter lost his father all over again thanks to this cloning problem. Now after Susan Storm leaves the room, you do have Nick Fury walk in. Now at first, his goal was to arrest Peter Parker and try to hide this problem. But after seeing what he has been going through, Nick Fury realized that what he has been doing is actually hurting Peter instead of trying to help Peter with this problem. And so you have Nick talk to Peter as a friend, but also a father figure as well, where he tells Peter that he is so sorry for what he did to him, that he believes that Peter will become a great superhero one day. But then after Nick Fury leaves, you have Kitty Pryde appear at the hospital, but she does not confront Peter at all. Instead, she watches over him right when Aunt May wakes up, where you have those two discuss the fact of him being Spider-Man. But again, Kitty Pryde doesn't walk up to them. She stays hidden, but she asks Jean Grey and Charles Xavier to wipe the mind of Aunt May because she remembers that Peter believes it would be too hard on her if she finds out that he was Spider-Man. But you have both Jean Grey and Charles Xavier tell Kitty Pryde, no, we cannot do that to someone because we do not have the right to wipe someone's mind. Now, the story does end with a few things happening before the book closes. The first thing we see is that Peter goes to visit Jessica Drew once again, and this is her confirming that she will be leaving New York. She does not want to be tied down to S.H.I.E.L.D. or Peter. She wants to have a life of her own to deal with. We also see that Nick Fury is taking the Gwen Stacy Carnage clone with him along with the Scorpion clone as well. Now, if I remember correctly, we do not see the Peter Parker Scorpion clone ever again in the Ultimate Marvel Universe. Now, to close this video, we see Mary Jane and Peter Parker declaring that they are back together again by making out in the middle of the street. But while they were making out, Kitty Pryde was going to check up on Peter, only to see she was correct. Peter is still in love with Mary Jane.